Hello again and welcome to my podcast. You're listening to me, Lee Bestall, also affectionately known as the Northern Designer. In my series of podcasts, I'll be chatting with industry professionals from all aspects of the design world, focusing in on plants whenever I can. I'm today joined by the fabulous interior designer, Julie Poulter of JPI Design. Today, we're going to be talking about inspirational interiors and the effect that they can have on our daily lives. And I want to introduce you to Julie. We've known each other for, 10 years or something?
Must be 10 years.
And throughout that time, we've both grown with kind of the type of clients we've worked with, but also the kind of projects we've worked on. Just tell me a little
passions,
bit.
I think, that changed, didn't it?
When you
start out to where you want to be, I think your aspirations change, don't they?
Yeah. Just give us a quick brief kind of history of what you've done and how you got to where you are today.
So I started education, furniture and product design. So my passion is furniture design. That's my geek. So graduated from Nottingham-Trent in furniture design and went off to America to work for a year. And then I went down to London with a load of uni girls and living the dream in your 20s, going out to the opening of an envelope. And we went to every furniture show, manufacturer, flew out to Milan to the furniture fairs, and just worked crazy hours. I used to work for a company in Manchester where we did exhibition design.
Right. Okay.
So everybody thinks exhibition design is really small, but when you see the scale, what they do for like Reebok or Sony or Microsoft, they build £1 million stands and they'll build it in a footprint that goes up in 3 days. Delegates fly in, and this stand has to multi-purpose. It hosts clients for dinner. It showcases the new product. It's demonstrations, CPDs, private meetings. And we got to really do so much product design around an interior that we basically keep them on stand as long as possible and send to them. And then it'd come back down. And it was crazy the amount of money that they would spend on events. So you'd fly into Cannes and do their product launches. You'd go over to Vienna and do product launches. But I think you can only do it in your 20s. When I got to my 30s, I was like, I'm too old for this.
I'm too
old for this.
Does that kind of thing still happen? Because it seems like in the post-COVID world, I've been to a few exhibitions and they're all kind of much smaller now. They've just not got the buzz and the money that they had before. Is that the case?
They've lost a lot of revenue, I think. And I think perhaps they're more focused on what clientele they have got.
Right, okay.
And the supply and demand's changed so much, hasn't it, in lockdown? Yeah. I'm trying to get hold of anything. And actually, I think the new passion will be to get things that are made in the UK. And I think that's the only way actually to grow our industry and our economy. And if I'm being honest, I've always loved that. I've always wanted to make British.
Yeah.
There's loads of designers that are international that I like, but to make British, wouldn't that be amazing?
Do you think then we're going to see a lot more big British names? Because like there's that guy who does those really cool lights, and they sell them in mainstream now, and they're like bent steamed wood. I've kind of seen that. Is it Tom Raffled, something like that?
Raffled, that means.
Yeah, he does. He was kind of like a British designer, and he's kind of, I presume he's making in the UK.
Yeah. Do you know somebody pointed out a chandelier by him the other day, and it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Then furniture, like I've just commissioned a handrail for a job and it's going to be originally turned. That just never happens. Right. People don't spend that money on having something turned.
Yeah.
It will be a massive statement piece. And somebody has to commit to that, because it's not something like, do you know how interior design became a little bit fashion orientated, and I really don't design very fashion orientated. I tend to design that's more long lasting, something that represents the client's personality, like really dig in and figure out what's inside the head. Because if it's designed for a season instead of a reason, I should coin that one. Coin that one for later.
Designing for the season? No. Designing for the reason, not for the season.
Yeah, we should totally write that down. But then it has longevity for the client. It's better cost per use. You use a better material. Yeah. You have a relationship with why you've designed it. If it's fashion-led, it can be so fickle. And where's the heart in that? Yeah. It's surface.
We do something similar for the exteriors. And I always say, are we doing a makeover garden because you're only going to live here for a few years? Or are we doing like this kind of project that leaves a legacy? And for me, that is so exciting. And it sounds like that's what you're doing with an interior. If you're going to put a staircase in a new property, it's going to be there for, 100, 200, 300 years? It could be there forever.
It depends on the property, doesn't it? And also, like, I like to get inside the head. Where do you spend your time in the house? Is that morning or evening? What are your interests? Because when did it become fashionable? And a lot of house developers do it. They do shoe, like, footprints, like potato prints, as we call it. Yeah. When you get a true architect, they're not. They're driven by where the light comes down, what materials do you want to use. Obviously, it's driven by planners and what they let you do. But each house could be completely different based on what they do in the house. Like, is it a family of 4 or is it a family of 2? Do they have dogs? Are they into crafts and cooking? And it completely changes each room that you're using. And rather than having a room with a bloody big TV in it, what's the function of that room? Is it day use, night use? What do you want to achieve there? And that personality makes a room work better.
Yeah.
Rather than just people running through a taupe house, you know?
Do you think that, though, because I totally agree with when you're designing something specifically for a client, you get to know them and then you design,
understand the personalities.
But do you think that then bespokes that house too much for that client, where it kind of becomes then when they sell it, the next person's got to do a whole gut on it because it doesn't fit their lifestyle?
I guess that comes at brief, like you were saying. If you're saying to a client, how often are you going to spend time in it? Do they go and then live here 2 years, 7 years? Is it a longer time than that? So that comes in practice when you're designing it. But really, do you know, if you were ever looking, and we all do this, don't we? You look on like travel agents, TV programs, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. You're looking at an interior and you're imagining being in there. And if it's so muted, there's no personality there to attract what you would do in that room. So I think each room needs its own personality. I don't mean you're going to go from bright green to blue. You're always going to have some sort of vein that flows. I mean, flow in a house is so important. Actually, even in an office, obviously we do restaurants and bars and office schemes. So they all have to flow. They have to have an interconnection of how they work. But you can change up a scheme and change down a scheme depending if you're using it for different functions or day and night. And lighting's massively important. I don't think people are as scared of colour as they used to be.
No, because we were all told to kind of rip out the colour in our houses, plaster the walls, get rid of wallpaper, and go beige.
So
that was
gone.
what the
That
was what the TV was telling us to do, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And then you've got.
And everybody went grey for a while, do you remember?
grey mad, yeah. I'm just coming out of the grey phase now, and it's taken...
It's all stones and plaster colour and stuff.
I know, yeah. And I see trends, as I'm going around clients' house, I see trends and I'm like, I want to do that now, and that is a real problem. Do you follow trends in interiors? What's the latest thing that people are doing?
I still love to read it. I'm one of those that I'm lucky, and I know you feel the same. If doing what you do and loving it is a real difference from doing a job, right? I have friends that do jobs and they can't wait till Friday. And they get the anxiety on a Sunday ready to get back.
Sunday school tummy, we used to school tummy. It's weird, isn't it? You feel sick on a Sunday night.
Yeah.
And you're like, I think it comes from that time when I was a kid and you'd be like, it's bath time now.
You haven't done your homework.
You've got to have your bath. You're thinking, when am I going to fit that homework in and eat my tea and pretend I'm going to bed early and watch Howard's Way? Because obviously that was the Sunday
was really
night
important.
thing. Yeah. Then it was bed. Hated that music.
I actually have that playing in my head right now.
Yeah. So school tummy. So we don't have that anymore.
Yeah. I love it. I live and breathe it anyway. My other half goes nuts because there's constantly a project on the go. There's constant something that I'm finding in a salvage yard or second-hand shop that I'm refurbing. So I do the refurb just for fun anyway. We've just moved house. I mentioned to you, oh my God, you won't believe how many chairs I own.
Go on, how many?
There's 20 that are moving across and we're selling some.
Are these 20 in addition to the ones you already have in the house?
No, they're part of it. I'm taking 20 with me.
Okay.
But yeah, like I have vintage furniture, I have salvaged furniture, I have industrial furniture, I have the most amusing dining room table that's actually in my kitchen that's Edwardian. And I personally love that jujux, mixing old and new.
Yeah.
I don't put my personal taste in the client's house. I try and get inside their head. It's supposed to represent them. It makes them feel comfortable. Do you know when you go to a hotel and you kind of flow through the hotel room and you can't figure out why you feel so relaxed?
Yeah.
It's because they designed it well. They designed it subtle.
It's good, isn't it?
It's not shouty. It's not showy. Yeah. It's subtle. And that layering is subtle where everything just works. It's just in the right place for that light switch.
Yes. It's as if someone...
It's the bedside light that turns off without getting out of bed.
Yes.
It's sensory light so you don't stub your toe.
Yes. It's as if someone lived in that house or that room before you, even though they didn't. Yeah. That's when you know you've got a good designer, isn't it?
Yeah. I love that stuff.
Yeah.
I never know how to approach it when I'm first talking to a client because what I really want to say is I just want to get inside your head.
Yeah. I
Because
say
then
that
I'd
all
look
the
like a
time.
weirdo, right?
No, I think it's fine to like a weirdo because we're designers, so we're creative.
We're supposed to be extroverted.
Because they go, oh yeah, they're a creative.
Yeah,
so
quirky. I get called quirky all the time.
I love that because that gets you out of everything. You can be legitimately weird, or you can geek out on certain things like furniture design, and it's fine because you're a creative. And it's like, oh yeah, that's cool, isn't it? Everyone else is just weird, but we're creative.
Yeah, and also my arms. I use my arms a lot when I'm talking. I often say to clients that I'm trying to understand you. And so, do you know what I found works really well? And I've changed the way I've been working over the years. And I know you were going to ask me about how I do processes of work. And one of the things that I thought of is when you start out, you think you have to be able to understand somebody in one way.
Yeah.
Well, we all don't understand in one way.
Yeah.
So my perception of blue and modern is different to yours because it's what you're exposed to, right?
Yeah.
And also, I don't know that you're not colourblind. And I don't know that you experienced a bad situation where you blew sofa. So I'm going to suggest a blue sofa to you.
Yeah.
And it all sounds really little, but actually everything we're exposed to creates our natural habitat. And our behaviour then is subconscious to how we enjoy that environment. So it's all to do with psychology. The way we light a room, the way we move around a room, everything builds up into your perfect scenario. And we're all individual. So it's going to be different.
I also think that we always forget we are animals. And although we're more advanced than some, and you might argue that we're not, but yeah, and some people aren't, but that animal instinct, that natural kind of thing is
winter
still
season
in
when
us.
you want to nest.
Yes.
How much do we nest?
I love nesting. I love nesting.
I
Some
love
people don't
baking in the
understand that, do
winter. In lockdown, I turned into plant fiend and baking.
Yeah.
I just got fat because I kept baking. I kept delivering my neighbours cake. They're like, stop feeding me.
Yeah, I mean, that whole nesting thing is that goes back to when we lived in like caves and stuff.
Hunter-gatherer.
Yeah, and we wanted to make it cosy and safe, basically to kind of bring up our children, I suppose.
So
but
what we're exposed to really becomes your natural habitat and behaviour, and that's how you feel more comfortable. So getting to know somebody you're working with and understanding lots of little details about them builds a bigger picture. And that's what I was actually saying. I went off on a tangent. I've started using and not
I'm like that. We're going down this road. Ooh, we're off there. Oh, look, we're back.
You get to the end of that going to finish the conversation.
Yeah, easily distracted.
I've started using pictures on my briefings.
Okay.
So I have a questionnaire that I'll send to a client, and it's gauging their involvement as well. Some don't want any involvement because they're too busy with careers, or they claim they have no design taste. Everybody does, right? It's just perhaps a bit shy about it.
They certainly know what they don't like.
Oh yeah, that's the hardest thing to answer. I know I don't like it, but I don't know what I like.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's 10 more options.
Yeah.
But I've started doing images, and so we rate the images. I have a questionnaire they fill out. I've got the brief from the client. I go away, do some research, create this questionnaire, and I have them rate it like a magazine quiz, 1 to 10. Which are your best? So I might know that they're really into cooking, and I might even know what type of cooking they're into. And then I go away and I use source material to find images to show them options.
Okay.
And it filters down with that. I'm really aware that I'm filtering down into specifics. And it means that when I come to actually drawing it up on card and presenting visuals, I'm answering the questions without I'm realising.
Yeah.
So it has to meet the function first. Function right, then decorate it or create the furniture, and then layer it.
Yeah. Because some people they kind of do something that looks pretty, but actually it really doesn't work, does it? And actually that causes quite a lot of stress when you're living with it.
It bothers me.
So we've got client might say, oh, I want this type of paving. I'm like, okay, are you aware of what you're setting yourself up for there? Are you going to clean it every day? Yeah. And people think low maintenance is this, but actually it's not. If you're going to have some like Barcelona style minimalistic design in Sheffield, you've got to be aware that there's squirrels, birds, leaves, debris, dust. There's all that kind of stuff that's all going to be working against you in trying to keep this place tidy.
Do you do that then? Do you assess like their environment where they are they more country or more city before you put the scheme together? They've got a brief, but you're like, this is going to be hard to maintain here, or
so I mean, some people kind of come with us with quite a fixed idea of what they want, and I kind of like feel it's like a responsibility to say, well, this is why it will work and this is why it won't work. And sometimes you feel like you're squashing their dreams, but you don't want them. Literally, I
had a visual then of a big foot.
Stamp on that one. And people say, I want this white rendered wall, and I'm like, okay, let's go through all the reasons why you want it. And have you thought about all these other reasons that, you know, it's going to get dirty, you're going to have to do X, Y, Z. So that's actually going to cause quite a lot of stress in your life when what you're telling me is you want low maintenance. So we need to look at those material choices. And actually, I think we're moving towards design, which is a lot more relaxed since the pandemic. You know, people are less uptight about things looking tidy. So we do a lot of work through kind of like North Yorkshire.
Do you think because they're now living in the homes?
Maybe. But I think they've realised how stressful a black granite top can be.
Yeah.
Because it's like you put one fingerprint on it and it's dirty, so they have to clean it.
We shared a client years ago and they had a marble top in black, and every day she'd be polishing it. And she hated it, and she'd be like, I'm never having this again. Because it takes the enjoyment out. If you can't use it and it's just show, then there's no point in having it.
So I love that whole like country kind of look where you've got, you know, if you get a little chip out of it, it doesn't spoil it, it kind of adds to it.
Yeah.
You know, like your dining room table, had like, we had one and it had like knife and fork prints in it where kids had been like sat there going, I need feeding, like stamping or crayons or whatever, bread knife cuts and stuff.
Georgina had a bookcase from an old library, obviously came from a school, and it had swear words on the back, and I'd sanded it down and then like, you know, restained it. But as she got older, she started reading. I had to explain to her that she's not allowed, she can read it, but she's not allowed to say it.
But that history is part of that piece, isn't
authentic.
It? And it's like, you know, you can buy that, but you can't buy it at the same time. You've got to find it. And that's often quite expensive to go. You mentioned reclamation. I was going to say, how expensive is it though for you to go out, source something, envisage where it's going to be?
And you can't say it is going to be there.
No, you
can't.
Know,
it's like when somebody says that, often I'll get, how much is this scheme going to cost? And you go, I can't tell you how much the scheme costs until I've designed it.
Yeah.
Which is actually, I was saying that we changed our processes. I used to try and quote a scheme based on, this is the footprint, this is the house, you know, especially if it's not off plan, you can actually go walk the space, talk. But I honestly don't think, so how long have I been at this now? 2001. I don't think you can cost a seam until you've designed it, because if we were just really basic and say any box can be anything, a square box, I always argue with architects about this. There's one, but I won't name him after a few beers. A box can be anything, right? Architects designs this beautiful box, the material's amazing, we meet building regs, the lighting comes in, we've got all the things that are fundamental to a great building. But that building can be anything. It can be a clinic, it can be a shop, it could be a restaurant, it could be somebody's home, it could be a study. We can change that space so many ways, unaccountable spaces. So really, you can't cost a job until you've actually got to the point where you've hit the design. So we now change the way we work. We do concept and development of those concepts. Yeah. And only after we've reached that stage do we cost then for delivering the job to site.
That's interesting because we've recently changed the same. We've recently done exactly the same.
I feel like I'm constantly like either running out of hours or they don't understand how much work's involved. So if you've got it on print, if you've got an image and you've got your plans and you're like, so this is all paneling, this is a bespoke sofa, this is the flooring we're going to lay. And then obviously becomes the shopping list of everything that's involved. They can choose which bits of priority to include in the job or not. But without designing it, you cannot cost it.
No, because essentially you could paint it red and put a bed in it and it's a bedroom.
Yeah.
Or you could kind of go to the extreme of having bespoke this and that and the other.
Vaulted ceiling, hidden lighting.
And it's essentially the same thing. It's just still a bedroom.
Yeah, but I always get that. So how much is a 3-bed house? Well, what's the square meterage? What's your taste? What are you going to put? Are you high end? Are you low end? Do you want bespoke? So we've started changing, and I had a couple of people say, aren't you worried about people taking your concepts and then going on with by themselves? And I said, if they do, they wouldn't be my client. Like, that's fine. They can take it at any stage. They've paid for the design. They can take it and do it themselves. But if they want that full service, they wouldn't then do that. They'd want to deliver the full image of what's happening. So it's no loss, is it? As long as the client gets the end goal, what they want, that's what I'm here to deliver.
Yeah. What are your favourite kind of interiors? If you were doing, I know that you've just moved house and you're going to be kind of redoing that.
Different.
What are your favourite interiors and who really inspires you?
So the quirky word. I love quirky. I like something that actually surprises me.
Okay.
So I can appreciate a sleek hotel, like your moulded walls, your hidden lighting, your plush sofas. I can appreciate that. But I mean, we're sat in your flower shop. Do you know the fact that it's quirky? The fact that it's been designed with a purpose.
Yeah.
So you could give me a library, you know, seeped in history, the mix mash, some patterns, some velvet, some old leather, binded books, antiques mixed with new. That's my personal favourite. I like somewhere I feel like I'm part of the secret five and I'm going exploring.
So I like have this, like, I guess you see it in America a lot where places have been built but they're not real almost. They're like pretend places because they don't have the history that we have. But when you go into, like, even if it's a coffee shop that used to be a bank, you know, when you've got that old building, but then you put new stuff
Purpose
inside
to
it, and then you layer it up with like you say, the leather bound books and stuff like that. It like, I don't know, what's that feeling that it creates inside you? Because it does, doesn't it?
I genuinely get excitement in my tummy. I get butterflies.
Yeah.
My Lee goes nuts with me. He's just like, can we leave yet? And I'm literally exploring everything. I've got my hands under the furniture, figuring out what nuts and bolts they've done, how they've done that pelmet. I'm proper inspired by people doing things in a different way.
Yeah.
I mean, why would you be normal? Why?
I don't know. I think
would you
it's
not push
overrated. There's too many normal people to be normal.
Need more quickies. So I like unusual, but I don't like fake environments. You know, like, do you remember when you were on about if you go to like a theme park?
Yeah.
And it's all made to look like it's castle, but it's not.
Yeah.
I remember my parents taking us on holiday in like my early teens, and we went somewhere in Spain. It was supposed to be a night and Javel. It was so cringy.
Yeah.
So just authentic. That's my
Authentic.
massive thing.
Okay.
A massive thing. I don't care what you're talking about as long as you're passionate about it. Just be authentic.
Yeah.
And get inside a client's head, and then whatever they love doing.
Yeah.
That's what makes it home, right?
What's your favourite hotel? You've mentioned hotels a few times. What's your favourite? Because I'm always looking for a good hotel to stay in. What's your favourite one from an interior design point of view?
We stayed in a glass igloo in Iceland. You know, when I didn't get to see the lights, it was too cloudy. I paid all that money to go.
Get to see them? I know.
Got a skidoo up there and then didn't see them. Do I have a favourite hotel?
In this country?
Do you know what? I don't think I do.
Don't you?
No.
I think mine would be Ruding Park. I love it's like the whole hotel is built from this really smooth ashlar stone, and it's got that history and that Georgian lovely feel.
Grandeur.
Yes.
Yeah. But it's understated grandeur.
Yes, it is. And they've got a little library in there and a lovely spa and stuff. And I just love that hotel because I think if I was a hotel, that would be me. That's just...
Do you know what we tend to do as a family? We tend to do Airbnbs and things like that. Obviously, there's lots of other websites. But I like going somewhere completely off what I thought would be. And also, I don't want to go somewhere that's not as good as home.
Yeah,
you're a bit spoiled, right?
That is
when you have a nice home, you don't want to go somewhere and pay money to go somewhere and it not be as nice as home.
It's like going out for a meal. If you can cook a decent meal or your partner can,
Lee's a nightmare.
Why would you go out and eat something that costs more and isn't as good?
Yeah,
it doesn't make sense, does it?
Yeah, Lee's a really good cook.
Is that the reason you do entertaining a lot?
Lee's the best cook. Georgina doesn't even ask me what's for dinner anymore. She asks Lee because I don't do the cooking. I'm just clearly the shopper for the food and the tidier up after. Lee's the cook. I'm the baker. Yeah, it's the same though. Restaurants are actually really nice to design.
Yeah.
You know, creating that ambience and also being authentic with the originality of where the food's from, bringing that into play.
Okay. What do you have to think about when you're designing a restaurant that you wouldn't maybe think about when you're designing a house?
So footfall, obviously, traffic flow through the building.
Right.
Maintenance is massive because of the footfall content. Route to use, so the kitchen's obviously always in full product. People like to see an open kitchen, and I do. That honesty about the cooking the food, I like that personally. So the furniture you design is different. We do a lot of bench seating when we come to restaurants. You know, create the booths and add individual chairs. So and you kind of a brand as well. A lot of them have brands. You know, like they might have a brand identity. So we've done restaurants. I've got a new one coming up actually. It's the 7th restaurant I've done with this same client. And he has different food. So he has an Indian, he has a steakhouse, he has a Mexican. But there's a brand there. And part of that brand identity, which is what we do a lot with commercial, is subtly put the colours into the interior so it's remembered, it's an experience. So you relate those colours back to that brand, like you know what a Nike swoosh is, you know what an Apple sign looks like. It relates to their ethos, what they stand for. So it's part of the experience.
And do companies, because I'm, if you go to a restaurant and you sit in a really comfortable chair, or you can tell how long they want you to stay by how comfy the chair is. You sit down at McDonald's, they clearly don't want you to stay very long.
And the fast music that's going on.
Yeah. Or you go into a really nice restaurant and you can tell that they've booked that table out for you for the entire night, because that chair you could fall asleep in.
There's nothing nicer than not feeling rushed, isn't there? The chairs we've got at home, actually, I bought based on one that I found at a restaurant. I just sat there stroking it like
one
a
of the 20.
Actually, there's 8 to that table.
Oh, right, okay. So who are these 12 then that are different?
Yeah, they're Danform, actually. Danform is the most amazing company. They do really nice chairs for dining. Right. It's so comfy. You should check those out.
Because outdoor furniture is so difficult to buy. We've got a few really good suppliers, but apart from that, it's just
the quality control and also
terrible.
Then led by style, right?
Yeah. And because in this country, the weather is so unpredictable, choosing furniture that looks nice and is kind of durable is quite tricky. So we're doing a lot of like outdoor rooms, outdoor buildings, sheltered areas.
I bet that went off in lockdown, didn't it? That must have been a real
I think lockdown really kind of helped promote that, outdoor kitchen, outdoor eating. And the good thing about it is, I know we were talking earlier about the fact that some of the trends we saw through lockdown have fizzled out and we've gone back to normal life. But I think one of the things that hasn't changed is the amount of time we're spending outside. And we're now happy to sit in the cold outside with a blanket around our shoulders around a fire pit. Whereas before, if you'd have said that to somebody, they'd be like, have you lost the plot?
Yeah.
But you go to like Amsterdam or somewhere kind of...
They always have throws on the back of the chairs.
Yeah. And it's like, why did that take so long to come over here?
Do you know what I think lockdown did force people? Was a lot of so I used to be 50-50 split between commercial and resi. And I like that. I like the diversity that it throws me back and forth. Because actually a lot of product knowledge that I learned for commercial, I'll apply to high-end home interiors. That hotel looks. It just pushes boundaries a bit more. But I realised that people started actually looking at the home. Perhaps they used to really enjoy going on holiday and then the lockdown stopped that, or they'd eat out so often they didn't really assess that the kitchen didn't work. So when they were forced to spend time, they started saying, why have we got this 4th bedroom that we never use? It's just like a glorified store cupboard. And they started looking at how they used the house, and they either fell in love with the house and did a reno, or they were like, I want to sell. And I think the big rush of domestic was that, and it's not really pitted off. The only thing that you get slowing down is trying to find trades to allocate the work, because good trades are booked and you have to schedule them.
So that commercial kind of design influence, I see that coming into even the clients where I'm going, we're doing the gardens and I see all those nice interiors, and I see that commercial kind of influence coming into interiors, even down to like Christmas decorations. Because I was looking at small photos the other day and there was like one Christmas tree made from tinsel and it was like 3 foot high, sat on a nest of tables. I'm like, okay, that was very 80s. And now we want like 17 feet real Christmas tree with front door, wreath, this, that and the other, blah,
we
blah.
make our own wreaths. That's massive, isn't it? I've booked on this year to go to a wreath. I've probably done it for the last 7 years, but I love it. It's just your lead up to Christmas to make your own wreath.
But bringing in that commercial influence into our homes, giant baubles that you would hang from 3 of them from the middle of your ceiling, you know what I mean? It's like, I love that
I
influence.
have a friend that is, or was, she's closed the business now, but she was an events planner.
Right.
I am not exaggerating to say she has 3 giant polar bears in her lounge every Christmas just because it's old
and
stock.
Why not?
And they're in a garage all year.
Were they from Meadowhall back in the day when those 3 polar bears used to play drums and stuff?
But honestly, full-on set scene of polar bears in her lounge come Christmas.
I want a snow machine in my house.
So she gave up a business, but she just now decorates their house at every possible season. So Halloween's just been a big event. But she keeps all the stock and brings it out at every event.
Brilliant. Winterization, I call it, because at this time of year, like, you're nesting and you think it's a little bit too early. We're talking 3 or 4 days too early to put your tree up because we're in the early November. But I think...
When do you put your tree up?
6th of November.
Do you?
Purely because I'm not allowed to put it up before, bonfire night's out of the way. So on the 6th, in fact, I've already got the cupboard open, ready. It's literally there, ready to be brought out. But I think, and it's like a winterization thing. I used to have a real tree, but we've got a house rabbit and he nibbles the foliage on it.
Before I go home.
So he's the cutest thing. So, but he literally would eat all the needles and it's not good for his stomach. So, we got a plastic one. But it's very realistic. It's a really good quality one. You can get good ones, can't you? Yeah, it's very good. Well, I'm afraid that's all we've got time for today. Thank you so much for coming in and chatting with me. I literally could sit and talk to you all day. Just before you go, can you tell the listeners how they can get in touch with you, your Instagram or website address?
Yeah, so it's Julie Poulter Interior Design or jpid.co.uk. You can find me on Instagram or Facebook or House.
Brilliant.
Or where else am I? LinkedIn.
She's everywhere. All the social media.
Yeah, but I don't manage them. Kate does because she's much better at spelling than I am.
I noticed that you send out posts really regularly, so I'm thinking surely that's not you that does that.
Honestly, Kate's the organised, logical one and I'm the creative, quirky
Genius.
one. She's like the yin to my yang.
Fantastic.
She keeps me sensible and tells me off.
Brilliant. That's thank you so much. That's brilliant. You can listen to all our other podcasts on Spotify, Apple and YouTube and follow me on Instagram @The Northern Designer or look me up on LinkedIn. Until next time, thank you, Julie.
Thanks.
Bye.